Alright, hello everyone. My name is Disc, and in this video we are going to look at a 21 Brackenhide Hollow, and for the week we are Fortified, Afflicted, and Raging. So Afflicted is the big one this week when it comes to being a healer, and the best thing we want to do is just use mouse over macros. It's simple as hell. All you have to do is hover your mouse on the 3D model. That's how they work. I would recommend making one for Dispel, Holy Word Life, Penance, and Flash Heal. And those are just just in case if you need to heal it, it's nice to have a macro at the ready. But for the most part, I think your Dispel is enough, and you should let your team get the second one. But I do think if maybe your DPS window is over, it's not a bad idea if you have life available, just to go ahead and help out with that, and that's that. So before we get going, I do want to flash talents. So I'm very excited to finally have 4-piece, and that actually changed the way I am building my spec out. So I'm still voting for Squid build. I know this isn't the common build. I really don't care. What I'm here to do is pump numbers. From what I've gathered, the only argument for the other spec is it does more healing. But this one does more DPS, and I think this one does enough healing, especially if you're playing it right and maximizing. So that being said, I have switched my point out of Train of Thought back into Long Schism. We don't need Train of Thought anymore to get both of our Dark Reprimands, since our Radiance is no longer a cast timer. So put that back into Long Schism. Feels really great having my second Dark Reprimand fall on a Schism. Huge single target, huge healing. And I think there's an argument maybe to put this into Bright Pupil. I think that would really synergize well with 4-piece. However, I look at this as a straight defensive talent point, whereas Long Schism is defensive and offensive. So that's just the way I'm going. Something else I'm trying is really to maximize Protector of the Frail. I think in the past I kind of just let it happen on its own, but I think the more you can maximize this, the better. It's just one more thing to think about, to be honest. But I had the thought that if you were to compare a shield and a renew, a shield is going to be DPS output with Crystalline Reflection and hit the CDR of Pain Sup. So compared to a renew, it's not doing that. So I'm really trying to run shield as much as I can. Work in progress. And then the last thing I want to say is about Torments. So I discovered something new this week, and it really ups the game, makes things even harder than they were. But I was saying you should aim for 7 Torment spells base value, but now base value should be aiming for up to 9. And the way you get a 9th Torment is by front-loading 2 execute ranges in your Mindbender window, and then backloading another 2. So this is not going to be every pull. But let's say you have a Mindbender that's going out as a boss as an execute range. You can really easily pick up 9, or maybe depending on the pull. And I think I have some examples here, but you can pick up 2 executes in the front of your window, 2 more in the back of your window. That opens up enough time for a final Mind Blast. So that's going to be 7 to 9 torments per window. And one thing to note, if you're really pushing for these 9 torments, you have to start making compromises in your rotation. So one thing I'm doing is I'm not letting Dark Reprimand cast all of its bolts. I'm cutting it off after 1 global, and I find that helps a lot. Or if I know this is going to be a 9 torment window, I will drop Star, being that it doesn't hit Harsh Discipline, things like that. So up to 9 torments is optimal. I think we have a couple examples of that here. And so the last thing I want to say is about Radiance. So now that I have my 4-piece, Radiance is hella important for our book. And I think playing it, there are a couple ways you can go about it. So I like to ramp long atonements going into my Mindbender. And I'm expecting those to fall off about midway in my window. And so I always preach trying to delay casting a Radiance the best you can. So unless you have to, you can front load a Radiance if you need to be defensive, but it's better if you can delay it and backload it. A couple things to maybe think about is delay your radiance until after you cast Star, or until after you refresh your dot, or after you cast Solace. Something like that. Those spells are not really going to yield that much atonement healing. So if you can get those out of the way in your rotation, cast Radiance after those, it's really going to empower the latter half of your window. And I made this little, excuse my crude graphics, but I made a little visual aid because I felt like I might not be explaining it that well. But so purple is Mindbender, yellow is your Radiance Atonements. So for example, I would call this a front-loaded Radiance, where we're going to have this pretty steep drop-off where all of our healing is going to kind of cease within the group. Conversely, if you delay your Radiance to maybe back here, it just kind of prolongs your window. And if you were to kind of look at this on a time graph, this will probably be over 30 seconds. And that's about the length of any trash pull. So all you really have to do is time your windows right and time your radiance at the best place, and you'll have full coverage of healing throughout your window. So always try and backload your radiance the best you can. Try and get things like Star and Solace and your dot refresh out of the way first. And then on the back half, you can just dump all of your atonement spells. And that's a pretty standard little ramp. So I think that's all I have to say. Let's go ahead and clip over to the video. All right, so we are about to get going here. Always want to kind of pre-plan where your PIs are going to go. I think for the most part I hit the Paladin, but I think I hit everyone at least a couple times, so we'll have to see. Also for these groups in the front, there is a fixate mechanic. And I have I've built this really nice little weak aura that not only plays a sound if you're targeted, but it puts a little border on the nameplate of the mob targeting you. So both of those are really important. And opening here is our ramp, trying to spread all of our dots, getting our Harsh Discipline. There's our PI on the Paladin. We have our 4 proc, Schism, Shadow Covenant, Mindbender, Mind Blast, Penance, Death, Star. A late Radiance. We got a double execute there. And I think that was probably about 10 torments. Whenever you have Bloodlust and PI, your torments just kind of skyrocket. But base value again is 7 to 9. And I did watch this video right beforehand. I'm going to try and make another video this weekend, but I don't think I have a good example of a 9 torment in here, so bear with me on that one. But big pull, spreading my dots, ramping my Harsh Discipline. I always like to have a renew on the tank before I go into my window. And also I'm casting Penance second, because without Train of Thought, we need to get it rolling. And if you play it second in rotation, your dot will still be active and you'll have a spread that way. So my rotation, after I get my 3 opener spells out of the way, is Mind Blast Penance. And I cut that Penance in half with a Death. And then everything else kind of falls into place. And you'll also notice here with my KUI nameplates, the War Scourge is the darkest red. They have the most health. They're a great PI target. And whenever the tank dies like that, I think he got hit by something if you look at the avoidable damage there. But I fade on the rip because you can always save a pull. And removing yourself from aggro, great way to do it. So also you'll see Hideous Cackle popping up on my screen in a red bar. That is a fear opportunity. Thankfully our paladins are doing their job, but that will wipe a group and your fear bomb can interrupt it. So I like to just see those as an opportunity. So going into next pull, one really pro tip is as one pull is ending, try and have a Harsh Discipline already procced. So I was targeted with a Fixate. There he is in the bunch. You see his nameplate. Pro Druid. 2 Dark Reprimands on my Schism. And there was no execute range for that pull, so that was I think it was only like a 5 or 6 torment. So it's all about kind of like timing your windows, and in a pull like this, I got into my Shadow Covenant too quick, and my Shadow Covenant expired before there was an execute range, so I lost those torments. But so far we're doing pretty good, right at 54.8 thousand DPS. I like it. Mind Soothe and Fade, you can sneak right by, a little shortcut. And the Claw Fighters here, if you remember my system, they're white because they cleave. They're also a good focus target. So I refresh my dot, Schism, Shadow Covenant, Mindbender, Mind Blast, Penance, cut it off with a Death. And for this one, I had to work in an early Radiance, just because the pull called for it. And right there was a defensive Dark Reprimand, just because I had it. And for this pull, I don't yet have my Mindbender, so I'm just going to open with all my dots. And in a moment like this, without Mindbender, you kind of want to reach only for your cooldown reduction spells for him. And here we go. So it's really nice to put the Dark Reprimand early in the sequence. We have to get it rolling. It also will ensure your dot spreads. Here's a double execute. And I missed my 7th torment, and that was only because I had to heal the group. But sometimes that is just how it goes. That is your primary job. And when I'm trying to ramp my Harsh Discipline, I think I've mentioned this in the past, but I'll put one Mind Blast on cooldown, Smite, then Solace. Smite is our quickest cast, quickest way to build Harsh Discipline. And finally, it looks like we got 7 torments there. And this is the final group before boss. Really important that we end the pull with a Harsh Discipline proc, but we still want to get our Mindbender out. So here goes our window. And I'm really favoring cutting off that first Dark Reprimand after a global with Death. I think it does a lot to help get everything in your tight window. And for that, I didn't quite pick up my 7th torment just because the play of things there. But if you play it back, you'll notice I was kind of waiting for one to hit execute range, and I still got 2 executes, so that was a 6 torment. Dropped the 7th. And super important here, I have Harsh Discipline ready. And this was not the best opener for me. I opted to spread my dots. I don't think you can do that. I think you have to put barrier down immediately, and I should have already been rapturing. So it's really important to get rapture out first, because there is a nice front end attack with that. So we recovered, but it was not that great. And this is our DPS window. Harsh Discipline is ramped. Dots are out. Focus Gash Tooth. And I have had success getting my dot on the totem before I'm polymorphed. This was not one of those attempts. But the best thing you can do really to help yourself out is dot it. And if you just time your penance appropriately, it'll do it. So I have no buttons at all. This was a little scary for me. This was not my best play for this boss. Yeah, that was not really good, but we got there. And we're almost going to be set up for that ideal 9 Torment execute range, but I did not play it right. Or I didn't time it right, they died. So, Mind Blast, Death, Death, so you front load the deaths, and then it'll come back available at the end of your window, picking up your 7, 8, and then 9th Torment off Mind Blast. And I'm going to do a Natharis key where I have some really good examples, I know I do. But, yep, it's possible. I just don't think we see it here unless it's like a haste window. But we're moving on. So always target the darkest nameplate. They are the biggest threat, most health. Great for your schism. And a lot of these guys are going to die prematurely. So I just throw in a couple Holy Novas for the DPS. I also threw my Shadow Covenant there without Mindbender, just because I wanted the Dark Divine Star. And the more you can play up your expiation, the better. I think you'll see in here, I might not call it every time, but I'm switching mobs quite a bit with my Mind Blast and Death. I'm always trying to consume a dot before someone dies. So if a mob has like a 20-second plus dot on them and they're about to die, they're a great candidate to attack. And oftentimes you'll consume all of one dot and you have to switch targets to another mob with a dot. So the more you can play up your expiation, the better. It's great healing, great DPS. I think it's really fun too. So one concept to maybe maximize your expiation is on my nameplates, you'll notice I only display the dot. That's kind of this whole big system just for maximizing expiation. I don't need my nameplates to show anything but my dot timer. And that's about it. And my Mindbender and Shadow Covenant is kind of falling off sync here. But I got a little bit of extra play on this next group. And this is where I have a problem. So pay attention, we're about to almost wipe. But looking at my available like pull modifiers down there, we have Barrier. Great for this pull. And being a defensive spell, if you play it late, it's too late. You have to play it early. So right now we should have had a Barrier out. Or right now we should have had a Barrier out. But then when I do play my Barrier, the Paladin dies outside of it. So I could have played it sooner. He could have stood in it. I think it takes 2 to tango, but we had a quick battle res on him. I faded, so I'm still alive. Pain Sup is almost available, which we will play here. And I go into a very defensive Rapture, where I'm pretty much just spamming the tank. And that is a fine Rapture play. I think I skipped over to myself for at least 1 shield. But yikes, we're really struggling here. But there's a Pain Sup. I'm trying to get a Harsh Discipline ramped. It's never good to be caught without one. And one thing I'm trying to get better at, and I think I'm doing a lot better too, is now that Shadow Word Death is 10 seconds, you can be a lot more liberal with its play. It is great damage, and there's no reason to hold it really at all. So use it as much as you can. Oftentimes, if a mob is dying, I'll refresh the dot, and then Death, Death, so I'm getting the expiation out of it. Yeah. So we're all back. I was the only one that lived. I'll take half the blame. I think the tank should have been in my barrier, but if you replay that, he definitely had his toes on the barrier. So all he had to do was take 1 small step forward. I placed it on him and he walked out. So it takes 2 to tango. And for a pull like this, we have a lot of lesser mobs which are going to die. So I'm mainly trying to get my first Mind Blast and Death out. And that was a defensive Dark Reprimand into myself. Hate to see it, but knowing when to use a defensive penance will a lot of times save people's lives. So always try and have a Harsh Discipline banked and ready. That is kind of the one thing you need to fiend for more than anything as a Disc Priest, is in your gaps or your like interims of opportunity is farming that proc and kind of yeah, just farming it. Yep. And in these groups, not much is really happening. These are kind of just like really boring pulls. Important to focus the right targets, aiming for the darker nameplates. If you're using my system, that is the preferred Schism target, especially now that we have long Schism. And gosh, I just really love that second Dark Reprimand falling on a Schism. So great. Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with this spec, and I was actually really disappointed at the start of Dragonflight with how boring it was. But now that we have Mindbender, it's just totally saved the experience for me. And yeah, I was having so much fun. And now that I've discovered this 9 Torment method, I can't wait to really start trying to maximize that and get those 9 Torments. And yeah, again, sorry I don't have a good example here, but watch my other video, we'll have some good examples. And with all these lesser mobs, I'm trying to favor my AoE spells while they're alive. And I dropped a barrier. I think this was just like an extra defensive play. I don't need it on boss. Doesn't hurt to get it rolling now. Trying to reserve penance for when adds spawn. Our dots are a great source of our damage. If we play our penance, like right there, before the ads spawn, we lose value. So, yep, snuck in with a couple Holy Novas. And you've probably noticed by now, but I have my Radiant Providence procs displayed right there next to my Flash Heal procs, just with a little weak aura. And then I pull timers for the Afflicted Souls up as a weak aura too. So with this guy with big wigs, I'm pretty much only tracking Decay Spray. I really don't think this guy's much of a problem. But if I can time my cooldowns with when the ads come out, I'm trying to get a little more DPS off those guys. Also with Penance, saving Penance until ads spawn. It's a great way to spread your dot, get more value out of them. And you'll see on the tank he had a red dotted line. That's a weak aura showing that he has a dot on him. Yep, favoring my AoE spells there. Divine Star as soon as they spawn, Penance when they spawn, a couple Holy Nova. And right there I was again perfectly set up for a 9 Torment window. But I dropped my Penance instead of going into Mindbender, and boss died before I got my 9 Torments. Rip. Alright, this next guy, he has pretty much 2 main attacks. One is very much a visual circle, and then the other one is a frontal. So that's the only one I have turned on in bigwigs. So if I hear an audible cue, it means frontal. I also have it plugged into the targeted cast weak aura. And you'll see right here, I think I about die. But yep. I was targeted with the frontal, and I was even anticipating it with a pain sup, but I did not react quick enough, and it about got me. But the best thing you can do here is just kind of all stand in different quadrants around him, because you don't want that breath to hit more than one person. And with the targeted cast weak aura, it's a great place for Pain Sup when he is fortified, possibly just a shield if he's not fortified. And this is a little sneak past. Also, you may have noticed I have shield on my bars now, and I turned it to glow when available, and I'm trying to use that to help me play it more. So I always fade, mount, and sneak past. Great macro. Yikes. Okay, but yeah, so I got myself into trouble. I guess I'm not too sure of their boundaries there, but I pulled the vulture, and the tank did not notice and ran ahead to pull the bear, so I got ate up. This vulture is still on me. He's not attacked it yet. And looking at that, I had an opportunity for 9 torments and missed it. I think I was kind of vamping because of that death. Spooked me. Okay, so we have this boss. Also kind of a joke if you ask me. Just dodge ground attacks. And if you're targeted with the hyenas, try and kind of corral them to the traps. Yeah, and there's really not much to note here except using your spells to your best advantage. Only casting Penance when ads come out to spread your dot. Using your Star when the ads come out. Using your AoE Torment spells when the ads come out. Things like that. Not too much that goes on here. Also, I would like to add, I do as much as I can to learn this game kind of by myself. I go through bigwigs, read everything, I watch other people make plays, but every day I'm still learning something. So if anyone is watching my videos and notices I'm failing a mechanic, or not playing a mechanic, not seeing a mechanic, I would really like my channel to be a two-way street where, you know, I don't think I know everything. I do my best to share what I know. But if anyone sees something that I'm missing, I would love to hear it. I think my focus targeting for Schism, that was something that came through the comments. Yeah, I don't think I'm beneath learning something new. So if anyone sees something, let me know. And now that that boss is done. So all of this trash through here has pretty low health pools, but you still can grab a lot of DPS off of them. So that being the case, this is one place where I drop Schism on purpose. I just Shadow Covenant, Mindbender, and I'm aiming to get all of my Torment spells, just trying to grab all the DPS that I can. And we pulled in the War Scourge. By the way, this is just a pug, so if I'd known we were going to pull him in, or maybe if I was a little more familiar with this dungeon, I would have cast my Schism. But I think more times than not, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes it's okay to drop Schism if you're just trying to grab damage, but if a War Scourge is in it, he has plenty of health for a Schism. And with these guys right here, make sure to Mind Soothe them. And that was a whoopsie doopsie. The Druid body pulled, no problem. But this is where I make a mistake. It's the worst type mistake. And I don't do it much anymore, but it still happens every now and then, sadly. I don't really know a solution. But if you notice my spells here, I'm in my Shadow Covenant window just pumping. But I did not put my Mindbender out. So that could have been a really big DPS grab for me. Quite a bit of loss, but that's okay. And this next pull, we have a lot of lesser mobs that die really quick, but we have a great opportunity for some DPS grabs. And in this interim where we don't have our Mindbender yet, really important just to pump all of our spells that help his cooldown. Never a bad idea to remember you can be liberal with your Shadow Word Death, eat up the seconds off those dots that are remaining. Pumping Penance, pumping Mind Blast. And right here, I need to mark the Wrathexer as the strongest mob, but trying to get into my window really quick, favoring AoE spells. Possibly could have played my star sooner and got more. I think I went for my Dark Reprimand first. And with this next boss, I think we have one more trash pull first, but he's non-tyrannical. There's really not much you have to do except line your heals up with the totem or with his energy bar. If this were a tyrannical boss, it's really important to pay close attention to the heal absorb. And I am working on fixing my bars to show absorbs better. I had a great idea to have absorbs show as red. But you'll see in this attempt here, it wasn't configured properly. The absorbs were displaying behind the health bar, and I would rather it display on top of the health bar. Work in progress. I think I fixed it, but it's just I fixed it after this video. So you'll notice mid-screen that red bar is his energy. That is how we are going to monitor one of his attacks. And a slight overlap there with my UI, sue me. But yeah, with this guy, I really don't hold back since he's non-tyrannical. I really just want to get my Mindbender out and pump as much as I can. And I trust that everything else will kind of take care of itself. But so the red bar is getting filled. Oh, you'll see the heal absorb on the tank. Yeah, I want it on front. So for the first round of this, I Rapture, and I was a little bit late. I missed one shield on the Shaman, but covered the most of it. And we have Mindbender back. Yeah, if I can just get that red heal absorb to show on the front, it'd be so much better. And I think I fixed it, but Grid is it's honestly kind of a complicated add-on. And also have our macros for those guys. And the bar is getting full. We have a totem out. We have no Mindbender, but we have Barrier. So I Barrier, give a little bit of room, and instantly time a Radiance on the backside just to recover some quick health. And here is our Mindbender. So, I don't know if my affix game has been that strong this play, but I am trying to let other people do it some too. However, when I am getting it, I think as you saw back there, I was delaying it, but I was ready to if no one else did. So I was kind of hovering my mouse ready, but then someone else got it. Yikes. Okay, so for that one, I saw it coming. I pre-walled. And I think we're also set up for a 9 torment round here as well. But boss dies before we get to the 9 torments. So, quickly glancing at the DPS output, 50.4 thousand per second. I think that's stellar. That is so much fun to me. Aiming for 7 to 9 torments is just such a challenge. I think it's so rewarding. I think the argument that was made, and I'm reading between the lines here, I know what people are trying to say, but all they're saying is the other spec is more single target. Well, great. This is more AoE. If you want to say, you know, I think bosses are where you need more healing, therefore single target builds are better, that's an argument. But if all you're saying is it's more single target, I'm not buying it. So I do vote AoE build. I think for Fortified Weeks, you really see the strength in this. And I'm at, so it's actually at 50.2 thousand. And it sucks so bad that that one pull I forgot to cast my Mindbender. I could have been a little bit higher. But even with a mistake, I'm still pumping massive numbers. And I think right here I was trying to correct my grid. But then a quick splash of DPS. This is a pretty expected profile. Mindbender at the very top, aiming for 7 to 9 torments, which I'm having a lot of success with. Purge the Wicked is great as well. Always using penance to spread our dots. Mind Blast is a great driver. Always keep that running. And there's a lot of Sport and Expiation. I think there's a lot of DPS you can have there. Using Divine Star for the AoE. Dark Reprimand is well above penance, getting both of those on our Schism. And that's about it. So, oh, and there's Shadow or Death. So using that more liberally as well, I think that will really increase your output. Always try and stay low on the avoidable damage. You'll see on this run, I did not even take a single tick of damage. And I'm going to try and get one more video out this week to better look at this 9 torment rotation. But I'm really loving 4-piece, always trying to stay low on the avoidable damage. And until next time, Disc.